Hi, my name is Charlie Pacello. I'm an actor, producer, and co-director of the We Got Your Six play. If you're interested in learning more about this production, please watch this video. When did I fall in love with theater? My goodness, I fell in love with theater probably when I was about 5 years old, 6 years old, maybe a little bit early. Well, no, I was about 7 years old. I was doing a show as a kid where I was singing, Christmas songs. It was just Christmas songs at the school theater, and I was singing the first Noel. And my parents had no idea I had this talent or anything that was deeply connected to needing to express myself in front of people. And they were blown away. And I just loved being able. It just allowed me to be able to sing to others, to be able to reach out to others. And after that, they were trying to get me to perform and to audition for performance groups. Well, I ended up auditioning for a group called the Colorado Children's Chorale. And this was back in the 80s, and auditioned for them. Ended up being a part of this tour group that allowed me to perform on stage. And we would do all these song and dance musical numbers. And I just fell in love with it. I mean, I felt so much more alive on the stage and being, in front of people. Or just there's something that came out of me that just wanted to burst out. And when I got back into ordinary life, it wasn't the same. It was like I want to be back on stage again because I could be somebody else. I could pretend to be something. And I was a very shy kid. I was very quiet, reserved. But when I got on stage, it's something came out of me. And so I think that's when I first fell in love with theater. Um, and then when I was also in the sixth grade, I performed. I was Tom Sawyer in Tom Sawyer. It was a musical at the school, and I was the lead, and so I was performing, and I just fell into this character like nothing else I'd ever done before. And so it was at that moment that I was like, theater's in my heart. I got to do theater. My acting passion actually started a little bit later. So what ended up happening is I wanted to pursue acting and musical theater throughout my high school time. And I ended up having to halt that because I also wanted to do athletics. I wanted to play football. Well, I had a coach who brought me in when I was a sophomore, and he says, Charlie, you can't play football and be in the theater. You got to choose. You can be a football player or you can be a thespian, but you can't be both. And so, being wanted to be popular and cool and wanted to play football, I gave up theater, which was really foolish. But at the time, I was still trying to find myself and find my place. So I stopped with the theater in high school, ended up getting a football scholarship, went to the Air Force Academy, and did that track and graduated from there, became an officer. And so I was on the military track and got stationed out in Los Angeles. I was not happy with the work that I was doing. And so I got out of the military after I finished my time in service, and I wanted to get back into acting. I started taking acting classes again. I ended up going to the Stella Adler Academy of Acting. I wanted to follow those greats that I had fallen in love with when I was a kid. Marlon Brando, Robert De Niro, Salma Hayek, Benicio del Toro, and so I went there, and I just like everything in the curriculum was singing in my soul. Like I was reconnecting to my humanity again. I was like feeling alive again. I was putting on in these active imaginations and living in these different circumstances and bringing these truths onto the stage that for whatever reason wasn't being able to live it in life. And it was felt like I was living more of a truthful life on stage than I was in real life, even though what I was living in were these fictional stories. Playing these, being in Shakespeare. I mean, all of a sudden I'm having these fantastic words come out of my mouth, and I'm thinking, my God, this is amazing. And then learning how to create uh, the atmosphere, the environment, the circumstances, learning to create the circumstances that the character lived in. And that it was the character living in these circumstances that ultimately led to the result that, or the consequences that he was living through, and the different choices that I could make. You know, I had an acting teacher who told me, his name was Charles Waxford, and he says, it was the first time I had been in the military for 10 years, and so I was really into acting and jotting down my actions and my choices and each step and breaking it down. And I was playing Henry II in The Lion in Winter, and I get on stage for the first time, and he's, I'm acting this way and I'm moving here, and I think I'm really living this character's life. And afterwards, he's like, Charlie, I love you. He says, but I didn't get a damn thing out of that. And I learned that I wasn't connected emotionally. I wasn't connected to the heart of the character. I wasn't connected to his soul. And so it really opened me up to recognizing that I couldn't just, put it into some little process. I had to dive deeper into the life of the character, into his circumstances, his opinions, his values, his the things that moved him, the things that inspired and motivated him, and the things that he suffered from. And so learning to be able to dive deep into understanding what is his deepest motivation, and allowing the creative spirit within me to come through, and learning improvisational skills. So it was at that time that all of a sudden the creativity that had been buried because of what happened when I was in high school reopened up in me. And I couldn't get enough of it. I mean, I did so many plays, so many different, I think I did, like 50, 60 plays over the course of 14 years. I was doing all kinds of films. I ended up studying Shakespeare at Oxford, England, and went over there to study with some of the greats, and learning that I could speak Shakespeare in a vernacular that sounded just like the way you and I are talking today. And to be moved so deeply. I watched a performance, Sir Mark Rylance. He was playing Pericles in a play that I didn't know. And we were there in London, and we had a weekend off from our training, and we went to go watch him perform. And we were standing in the yard, and I was just captivated, mesmerized by his performance. And he did something where he comes out and he thanks the gods for him finding his wife and finding his daughter, and I'm bawling. And I think it was at those moments that really cemented my love of theater, and just my love of acting. Why is a theater experience so unique, and why is it important for the actors and the audience? The theater experience is so unique because it's happening in the moment. You don't get a second chance. You don't get a second take. It's a symbiotic relationship between the actors, the writer and director, and the audience themselves. And your goal is to be able to connect with them and help them for that moment to break time and space, to break their ordinary world, to move into this liminal space where they forget where they are, and they're so absorbed into this story that they've connected to this character and the characters in the play that enable them to relate on some level, and to be able to do that in the moment, in the present moment, where if an actor is doing his job well, if a company's doing a job well, they're so caught up in the story that it allows the audience to break that time and space continuum, and they're lost in the moment. They lose that sense of oh my gosh, I was here for 3 hours. How did that happen? That's the way what happened when I was doing that Shakespeare show, or excuse me, when I watched that Shakespeare play with Mark Rylance. I had no idea what happened. I was so captivated by the story. I had no idea three hours had passed. These are the things that we try, and because it's these moments of incredible passion and emotion that is spent. We are transformed by these experiences. We are elevated by these experiences. We One of the things that I really love about the theater is when I is what the ancient Greeks had done. The Greeks were the ones that originated theater. They were the ones. Aeschylus brought somebody coming out of the Dionysian chorus, and somebody spoke, and that was the Big Bang of theater. Well, their idea was that theater was used to be able to achieve transformation and catharsis, that it allowed us to tap into these deeper parts of ourselves that we couldn't grieve, that we couldn't tap into in the ordinary world. And so we go to the theater, and it was considered a sacred precinct. This was a sacred place. It had two gods that were part of the priest that started the commencement of the proceedings of the festival. You had the theater of Dionysus, the priest of Dionysus, and the priests of Apollo. And so they would set the stage, and so you're walking into something where you are going to communalize your grieving. You are going to connect with one another. You are going to be able to watch what was going on stage that allowed you to purge and cleanse what was trapped inside of you. The unconscious emotions that had plagued and made you feel toxic. When you watched the tragedies that unfolded on the stage there, it evoked pity and fear, and you would grieve, and you would see the horror, and you would connect to what was going on, and you would become out of that transformed. And I think that idea is still relevant today. When you go to a great theater show, you are transformed by the experience. You walk out of that experience differently than you walked in. And you can't get that anywhere else. You might be able to get that in a good movie. Occasionally you'll get that where you watch a great movie and you'll come out of it differently. But most of our movies now is just really entertainment. But theater has this incredible power to transform and to heal, to make us better people, because it's in the moment. It's in that moment where you're compelled to be vulnerable, and you hopefully are allowing the audience to be vulnerable with you. So to me, the power of theater is incredible. Oh my gosh, do I think theater is my church? I do. I'm a very spiritual person. I connect to a lot of different traditions. I look for things from the mystical, deeper truths of that. But as far as theater being my church, yes, because there's a performative quality that we're doing. And anytime you're going into a church, there is this performance that the priests or the pastors or the rabbis are doing. They're singing, they're chanting, they're praying, there's this sense of a performance. And so the actors are doing that on stage as well. There's a performance going on. And it's work done playfully. So you're connecting, you're playful on the stage, but you're really getting into a deep sense of communality, a sense of connection to what it means to be human on a deeper level. It connects us to the universality of our emotions and our feelings and how we get into certain circumstances. It helps us to broaden our mind, helps us to think about things differently, helps to evoke compassion. I think that's one of the biggest things in that theater offers, is this sense of compassion for others. You put yourself in characters' shoes that you would never have thought about doing before. Playing a murderer, or playing someone that is coming out of an incarceration, or someone who just lost their spouse, or who is suffering from some kind of disease. And it puts you have to shed off all of your judgments, all of your criticisms about this person, because if you're not living the truth of their life, you're not being able to communicate that to the audience. And the audience will pick up on that right away. The audience will pick up, if you're not living the truth of your character, They will pick up on that, and you'll lose them. You'll absolutely lose them. So you have to find in your character that sense of, what do you love about them? What do you care about them? What makes this character so important to you? So it opens your heart to compassion, which I think is at the core of any religion, is this sense of compassion for others, kindness to others, do to others as you would do to yourself. And so you feel this, and all of a sudden your judgments start to fall away. And in addition to that, there is this feeling, you feel closer to each other after you do a show. You've journeyed together. You've experienced something unique and special with these actors, with the audience. There's something that you have shared in this moment that transcends time, that transcends everything. And then you're going back into your world with this transformation and this open heartedness, this new awareness and compassion. And yes, so it's a religion. It is as good a religion as any out there, I think, when it's done well. The reason we wanted to bring this project to, while we wanted to do this project, is twofold. One of the things that I do when I'm not doing theater is I'm working with and helping people with PTSD and trauma to overcome their pain from, whether it's war, child abuse, domestic violence, rape, refugees, incarceration, helping people to heal from their traumas and being able to overcome those past pains so that they could live the life they were meant to live. And one of the things that I was studying and working on was, how do we utilize theater to be a vehicle for healing? How do we enable to use this ancient technology, this that had been used by these ancient Greeks so long ago, that helped their society and their communities to purge their toxic emotions from the wars and conflicts that they had? How do we relate that to the modern day? How do we incorporate that in our very modern, technological, materialistic, commercial world that doesn't seem to see that these things correlate? And so I worked with a couple of nonprofit organizations. One was called the Mindful Warrior Project. We brought mindfulness practices down to veterans on Skid Row. And it was there that we did a couple projects that were bringing theater to these veterans down on Skid Row, that here they were in hell. If anybody's been to Skid Row in Los Angeles, one of the most heartbreaking places in our country. It's just devastating. Lots of drugs, lots of violence going on down there. And so we came to bring some help and healing to the veterans that were living there. And those that did our program had some remarkable results. And we did a couple theater shows. It was Gail Sofer, who was who I worked with in that project, and we did some theater projects, and the veterans were very responsive. They had these breakthroughs, and they were in one time. I was developing a program where I was taking a veteran story and learning how to identify the archetypal elements of their story and putting it onto the stage. And I took this veteran story, developed it, and then performed it before them down there at Skid Row. And this was a very complicated story, a lot of trauma, a lot of horrible trauma. And I ended up performing it before these 9 veterans that were there. And these are crusty old veterans, hard life. And the veteran whose story I was doing, he was like holding on to his chair and was ready to bolt out of the auditorium or out of the cafeteria where we were performing this, so that, if it got too rough on him. And so I performed it, and when I got done, every man was crying in there. Every man was crying. They were embracing each other. They were holding each other. They were saying, "Oh my gosh, you had your you are helping our souls. You are saving our souls. And the man whose story I said, he said, you screamed out loud what I have been screaming inside my whole life. And so you saw this cathartic purging that was happening for these men. The other thing is I worked with an organization called Soldier's Heart with Dr. Edward Tick and Kate Dahlstedt. Worked with them for many, many years, learning how the holistic process and how to help veterans heal without having to resort to medications or psychotropic medications to help them get through it, to help them identify their wounds and move through it. And one of the things that I studied I went to Greece 3 times with Dr. Tick, learning about the ancient Greek tradition, about how to apply this, how to use theater in a way that, again, begins to help identify those deeper wounds in their psyche, in their emotional life, and how to present that on this stage and how effective it is, and learning those techniques. And Soldier's Heart enabled me to be able to work with many veterans doing this kind of work. I did a healing retreat back in 2021 up in Montana, where I worked with veterans there, some combat veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. And we dove into some theater work at that retreat, where they dove into a play called Heracles Gone Mad, which was one of Euripides' plays. And to see them open up, these were some of them were suicidal, suffering from, and the reading the play and breaking the script down and really opened them up in ways that was just incredible. It was incredible to see them all of a sudden. There had this revelation, this understanding. They were really, and it would have been, we broke these script down in ways better than some of the actors that I have used or worked with before, because they understood that the dynamics that were happening for those characters because of their war experiences. So with all that background, that's the reason why we're doing this show. We Got Your Six. It's called We Got Your Six, and it is about covering your back. I got your back. That's what We Got Your Six is, because I got your back. You got my back. And when you're in war, you're relying on your buddy to cover your back, because you're getting, when you're in a combat situation, you're getting fire from cuts coming from all different directions, and you got to know that your buddy, man or woman, has got you. That they're gonna help you to get home again. And so that's why we're doing this show. It's an amalgamation of a lot of different veteran stories. It's based on a lot of truthful stories that are woven together into a theatrical narrative. One of my veteran friends, he has a nonprofit organization called Bullets and Band-Aids. And what he does, he served in Afghanistan. He collects individual stories of these veterans, has a writer write down the story, about 4 pages, and then has an artist paint an image from their experience. It might be boots on the ground. It might be dog tags. It might be a nuclear explosion, whatever it may be. And then he has a walking tour going down in South Carolina, Georgia area where he lives. So he gave us permission to look at some of the stories, and we extracted some of the stories and have brought it to the stage. Ones that were very compelling, that we felt were going to do exactly to evoke those feelings in people, to help them to understand the veteran experience on a very personal level, and to see how that veteran experience impacts them when they return home. Because that they're changed by the experience when they go out into the field, when they go out into combat, and when they come home. It's really difficult for people to get back into feeling like, I belong to this society, I belong to this community. And so we want to share these kinds of stories. We want to be able to help veterans, or give them the opportunity to share these stories in meaningful ways, so that they can reconnect to the community that they serve, and that the community can understand what they do, and hopefully it helps to achieve that catharsis and cleansing that is so needed and by our veteran community. The main story in the arc of the play is it takes place in two times. The moment that the when Kabul fell. So just a couple of years ago, I think it was when Kabul fell. The Afghan, or excuse me, the Taliban were overrunning the airport. There was a lot of Marines that were there that got killed. So it's that moment when the Marines from this same company that we are a part of, that they lost some men and women. And so each of these characters, there's 7 characters that are touched by this moment because it's that company that they served in. And once they hear the news of what's going on in Kabul, the explosions, the loss of life, the detonation, it brings them back in a flashback to the moment that all of them are united together in this really vicious battle in the Afghanistan war, where they were all together and had to deal with taking someone who hit a landmine and an IED blew up and he lost both of his legs. And how this moment changed everyone. How this moment where all of them were impacted in trying to get this Marine out, and how they had to do it, and the intensity of the combat, the intensity of the firefight as they were extracting this Marine to get him to safety. And then there's a little storyline in addition to that it would absolutely 100% happen. There was a child or children that were involved. They got hit by fire, and what happened after that. And so we're weaving all of these stories together to bring the sense of the intensity of combat that these veterans face, and then moving back out to their present day moment and the revelations that they feel when they realize that everything that they had done was for nothing. So I want the audience to come out of this play production having a greater sense of what the veteran experience is all about. There's only about less than 1% of the population that serves. There's only less than 1% of the population of the United States that hears the call to serve their country. And it's that less than 1% that is willing to die for others that they don't even know of, to give them the freedoms that they take for granted. And so we want to be able to hopefully that you come away with a greater appreciation of the challenges, of the moral dilemmas that these men and women go through all the time, that they are forced to face with, and that there's a lot of gray area there, that sometimes it's not all black and white. It's not that, when you're in those kind of situations, you have to do things that you don't want to do, or you have to face things that you didn't know you would have to face. And it leaves you haunted. It can leave you with haunting memories, painful memories of, I could have done better, or I should have done better. I wish I would have done better. And these veterans that carry these deep wounds, these emotional, psychological wounds, that they come back into the communities, and they're changed by what happened to them, and they don't know how to fit in. They might feel like a bad person inside, a monster inside, someone who's not worthy to be a part of. They've got something that's unforgivable inside. They did something that was so bad, and had they not been in that experience, they wouldn't have had to make that choice. And so helping to open people's heart to that compassion for what they go through. That's what I hope that we give to our audiences, that you can, just get a glimpse of that sense of their humanness too, that they didn't, a lot of times they had to do things that they didn't want to do, and they deserve to be welcomed back and embraced and appreciated for the sacrifices that they made, and to help our society and community better, to make better choices, to make better decisions. If we're learning about our stories, their stories, they no longer have to carry it on their own. We carry it for them, and then we make better decisions. We understand the sacrifices, and then they feel like they're a part of the community again. And so that's what I hope we can accomplish. That's what I hope. When I'm performing live, I'm looking forward to just being on that stage. I'm looking forward to just getting on that stage and feeling that, sensing the audience out there, and the electricity that happens, and all of a sudden you get that nervousness that comes up, all of that preparation, all of that time, and you're out there, and it's there. You don't get to rehearse anymore. You're out there, you're performing, you're in the moment. The choices you make are right now, and there's no going back. And there's something exhilarating about that from a performer standpoint. And when I get on stage personally, something inside of me lights up when I come on that stage. When I step on that stage, something lights up in me, and it's like I'm no longer encased or closed in by life. I'm freed up to be an aspect of me to come alive. And so that to me is just the thrill of being on stage, and knowing that the audience is out there, and feeling that exhilaration that comes. That's what I look forward to. I think people will be surprised at the capacity of our humanness to be able to be seen even in the worst of conditions. I think that they will be surprised to see the incredible heroism that goes unnoticed by people that are just doing ordinary things. That these individual heroic actions that save lives that people don't know about. We tend to elevate people that tend to be nothing against celebrities, but they tend to elevate celebrities, tend to elevate sports figures, politicians, and in the military, you elevate generals, you elevate your commanding officers, but those ordinary folks, those sergeants, those Marines, those privates, those young officers, that there's heroic stories that happen that it'll blow your mind, and it'll give you such an appreciation of that, what people do that nobody ever hears about. And so I think that that's what's going to surprise people about this show. And also, when tragedy happens, our ability to overcome that tragedy collectively is really remarkable. When you're about to lose a man, how every moment counts. Every moment of that sequence counts, because it's a matter of life and death. And I think that will catch people like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize we had that capacity to do that. You must come to this play because it is an original play, and it is talking about all these deep human themes about the veteran experience that will change your life. You will be opened up by their stories. These are real stories of real veterans that we've put together to showcase and highlight their experience. These stories actually happened. And that's what makes it so unique. That's what makes it so important for you to come see, because sometimes you'll come to a play that the story's moving, but it was created in the world of the writer. It's created in the world of Eugene O'Neill or Tennessee Williams or Shakespeare or Harold Pinter, whomever, and it's there and it's brilliant, and it's characters that are living in those circumstances, and they're fictional. The circumstances that are described in our play are real. It's based on truth that these stories happen. And that's what makes it so unique. And when you hear that, it resonates so deeply on a deeper level that it will be changed by it. You will come out of this having a greater appreciation of what the veteran experience is and what it means to be human in some very extreme circumstances. Why is it so important for theater companies like us to be able to exist? And why is it so important to support us financially? Like it was said, art is not cheap. We can't put on these productions without having some money, without having some kind of financial, it costs money to put on a production. We want to pay our artists. We want to pay our actors. We want to pay our production designers, our scenic designers, to give them so that they can do what they love to do. Supporting a theater company like ours, we are intimate theater is unlike any kind of theater there is, where you are close to the actors, you are close to the experience. It's not far away. Not that I'm taking away from some of the larger theaters. It's great. It's fantastic. But intimate theater is so you're close. You can see every moment. You can see a twitch on the actor's face. You're right there with them. And there is something extraordinary when you're in that kind of space. And you can't get it anywhere else other than 99C Theater. You can't get that kind of close contact with the characters and the story like you do in intimate theater. It is something special. And when you see a great show and a great play, you are just, it is your every cell of your being is tingles because of it. And you walk out of there. I remember seeing a show once called Our Town in New York. It was an intimate theater. And I came out of there bawling. Like I was just, but it was like the story, the actors. I was right there. I could see every step. And I don't think I would have had the same experience if it was on a large stage, because it was that close. So supporting theater companies like us, like Lightning Rod, we are dependent upon grants and donations in order to do our productions. Paul and I don't get paid to do anything. This is to be able to support the artists in our community and the communities we serve, to give them a chance to do and live their dreams. That's what we do. And it costs money. A theater production in Los Angeles costs $30,000 usually to put on a good production. That's just what it costs. And so with a theater company like ours, we can rent, we can find other efficient measures by, maybe reducing here, but that's what it costs to do a quality production. And so we are dependent upon the donations of others and to help us to be able to put on these kind of quality shows and to give artists their due as well. They deserve to be paid for their work. It's when you see what the rehearsal process is and the sacrifices that they make to be able just to do that, what they love on stage, we've got to be able to support them too. And so that's what we're trying to do. One of my hopes and dreams for the future of this play production, to be able to take this around the country to different cities and locations and to produce it there in front of other veteran communities, so that they can see and resonate with what's being performed, and to be able to allow them to experience theater the way it can be experienced, that sense of community, connection, communal grief, that sense of being able to mourn together our wounds that we've experienced, and then allow them to be able to share their experiences after the show is done, where we do a talk back, where we can allow them to, process what they saw, what they heard, because a show like this inevitably is going to open up people who have had those experiences. And so giving them permission, because it's opened them up, giving them permission afterwards to be able to speak about it, talk about it, grieve about it, mourn, having people around and available there. That's what I see. I think it could be an enormously uh, powerful and theatrical and healing experience for people. And if we could take it around the country, that's the idea. So that's what I see. I want to see it. I want to see this in other productions where we're taking this project. The idea is to be able to develop other stories as well with the We Got Your Six project, so that we're constantly, renewing it, revitalizing it with new stories, sharing it, so that we keep bringing veteran stories out onto the stage. I think Lightning Rod Theater was founded, by Paul and I back in 2009. It was an idea that we had together, and now we're like 15 years in or something like that, and we keep going. And our productions are always about trying to, push the leading edge, create incredible content, and also to help our veteran communities, LGBTQ community, and BIPOC community. So your support in our theater company is really, really would be very helpful. So please support our work, lightningrodtheater.com. Thank you so much. We are so looking forward to seeing you at our production, at our theater. Checking it out, Lightning Rod Theater. We're the Lightning Rods. Looking forward to seeing you at our production of We Got Your Six.